The Industrial Revolution changed not only the British Empire, but the world entirely, as forests and the English landscapes were eroded by smoke and machines. The lifestyles and politics of the British Empire changed too. In this time of great change, we witnessed the development of Romanticism, an intellectual and artistic movement valorizing nature and the natural world. The poet William Wordsworth is critical to this tradition, but so is J.R.R. Tolkien, who fused his enchanted ideals of England with medieval folklore and language. This is all part of environmental history. How humans interact and submit to environmental catastrophe, change, and opportunity is of keen interest to environmental historians. One is Peter Frankopan, whose blockbuster work, The Earth Transformed, draws on several decades of research and reveals a commitment to environmental history, the historical subfield dedicated to understanding our relationship with nature. Environmental history examines the complex and evolving relationship between humans and the natural world through time. Unlike many traditional historical approaches that focus primarily on human affairs, environmental history places the natural world at the center of historical inquiry, exploring how humans have shaped their environments and how environments have shaped human societies. In this exploration of environmental history, I'll take you through what makes this field unique, how it differs from natural history, its connections with agriculture and economic development, and where the field stands today. I'm Madeline Rose Jones, and I study history, literature, and culture. Welcome to Snowy Fictions. Environmental history emerged as a distinct discipline in the 1970s, alongside growing public awareness of environmental issues. At its core, environmental history studies the interaction between human societies and the natural environment across time. It examines how humans have understood, used, and transformed nature, and how nature has influenced the course of human history. This field is inherently interdisciplinary, drawing methods and insights from history, ecology, geography, anthropology, and other disciplines. Environmental historians might study changes in landscapes, the history of conservation movements, the impact of industrialization on air and water quality, or how different cultures have conceptualized nature. Environmental historians rely on a diverse variety of primary sources to reconstruct past human-environment relationships. These sources include traditional historical documents like government records, personal diaries, business ledgers, and travel accounts, which can reveal how people understood and interacted with their environments. But environmental historians also turn to less conventional sources. Scientific data, such as tree rings, pollen samples, and ice cores, provide insights into historical climate patterns and ecosystem changes. Maps, photographs, and artwork document landscape transformations over time. Agricultural records, including crop yields, land surveys, and irrigation plans, shed light on changing land use practices. Oral histories, whether from indigenous or settled populations, have preserved ecological knowledge that may not appear in written records. Consider, for example, an environmental historian studying 19th century Romanticism along the Rhine River. This researcher would draw upon a rich variety of sources to understand how writers and artists interacted with the landscape and how their work shaped cultural perceptions of nature. Their primary sources might include the literary works of German Romantic poets like Clemens Brentano and Friedrich Schlegel, who celebrated the Rhine's dramatic landscapes in their poetry. The paintings of the Dusseldorf School of Landscape Painting, particularly those by artists such as Johann Wilhelm Schremer and Andreas Achenbach, would offer visual documentation of the river's appearance and how it was idealized in Romantic aesthetics. The historian would also examine travel journals from early tourists drawn to the Rhine by Romantic literature and art, which often described environmental conditions alongside aesthetic impressions. Engineering records detailing the Rhine's 19th century channelization projects would provide evidence of how industrial development was transforming the very landscape that Romantics celebrated. Geological surveys and botanical studies from the period would reveal scientific understandings of the river ecosystem. Local government archives might contain debates about preservation versus development, showing how Romantic ideals influenced early conservation efforts along the river. Through these diverse sources, the environmental historian could reconstruct not just how Romantics portrayed the Rhine, but how their cultural movement both responded to and influenced real environmental changes in the region. What makes environmental history particularly valuable is its ability to provide historical context for contemporary environmental challenges. By understanding how past societies addressed environmental problems, we gain perspective on how our current situation and potential futures may unfold. Related, environmental history and natural history represent different approaches to studying the natural world. Natural history is primarily concerned with describing and classifying nature itself, studying plants, animals, ecosystems, and geological formations on their own terms. Think of the work of naturalists like Charles Darwin, who carefully observed and documented natural phenomena. Environmental history, by contrast, focuses on the relationship between humans and nature. While natural history might study the biology of forests, environmental history examines how human societies have used forests, how forests have shaped human settlement patterns, or how cultural ideas about forests have changed over time. Another key difference lies in methodology. Natural history typically employs scientific methods of observation and classification, while environmental history uses historical methods, analyzing documents, artifacts, and landscapes to reconstruct past human-environment relationships. Both fields inform one another. Environmental historians rely on natural history to understand the ecosystems they study, while natural historians increasingly recognize that few environments on Earth remain untouched by human influence. The distinction between natural and human history becomes increasingly blurred in the Anthropocene, our current epoch where human activity has become the dominant influence on climate and environment. Agriculture represents one of humanity's most profound and lasting interventions in the natural world. The shift from hunting and gathering to farming, what we call the agricultural revolution, fundamentally altered human-environment relationships and created new forms of landscape management. Environmental historians study how agricultural practices have transformed landscapes over millennia. The clearing of forests for farmland, the irrigation of deserts, the terracing of hillsides, all represent deliberate human modifications of nature to increase food production. These agricultural transformations often had unexpected environmental consequences. The irrigation systems of Mesopotamia, for instance, eventually led to soil salinization that undermined agricultural productivity. The plantation agriculture of the American South depleted soils and transformed diverse ecosystems into monocultures. Agricultural history also reveals the reciprocal relationship between humans and their environments. Different environments favored different crops and livestock, shaping distinct agricultural systems. The wheat-based agriculture of Europe, the rice paddies of East Asia, and the maize cultivation of the Americas all represent adaptations to specific environmental conditions. Moreover, environmental history helps us understand how agriculture has been entangled with social and political history. The enclosure of common lands in England, plantation system reliant on slavery in the Americas, and the Green Revolution of the 20th century all represent not just the changes in agricultural techniques, but transformations in social relationships mediated through the environment. Economic development and economic change are deeply intertwined, making the intersection of environmental and economic history particularly fruitful. Environmental historians have extensively studied how economic systems, from feudalism to mercantilism to industrial capitalism, have shaped human interactions with nature. The Industrial Revolution represents a pivotal moment in environmental history. The transition to fossil fuel energy transformed humanity's relationship with nature by dramatically increasing our capacity to extract resources and modify landscapes. Coal-powered factories not only changed production methods, but created new forms of pollution and resource exploitation. Environmental historians have also examined how nature has shaped economic development. Geographic factors like climate, natural resources, and disease environments have influenced patterns of trade, colonization, and industrial development. For instance, the abundance of coal in Britain helped fuel its early industrialization, while tropical diseases initially limited European colonization in parts of Africa. The commodification of nature represents another important theme. As capitalism expanded globally, more aspects of the natural world, from timber to wildlife to genetic resources, became commodities to be bought and sold in markets. Environmental historians study how this process has transformed both ecosystems and human relationships with them. A similar treatment was given to industrialization in the 19th century. These intersections help us understand that economic decisions are never separate from environmental consequences and opportunity. The pursuit of economic growth has often driven environmental degradation, but economic systems can also create incentives for conservation and better resource management. Environmental history has grown substantially since its emergence in the 1970s. What began largely as a study of conservation policy and environmental problems in the United States has expanded into a global field, addressing diverse topics and time periods. Several important trends characterize contemporary environmental history. First, the field has become increasingly global. Environmental historians now study human-environment relationships across all continents and time periods, from prehistoric hunter-gatherers to contemporary urban societies. This global perspective helps identify both common patterns and unique trajectories in how different societies have interacted with their environments. Second, environmental history has embraced greater theoretical sophistication. Early work often employed simple narratives of human degradation of pristine nature. Today's environmental historians recognize more complex dynamics, such as the agency of non-human actors, the social construction of environmental knowledge, and the entanglement of environmental issues with other strands of history, like intellectual, religious, economic, military, cultural, and political history. Third, the field has developed increasing methodological diversity. Environmental historians now draw on tools ranging from archival research to oral history, from GIS mapping to tree ring dating. This methodological breadth allows for more comprehensive analysis of past human-environment relationships. Finally, as global environmental challenges like climate change have gained urgency and debate, environmental history has become increasingly engaged with contemporary issues. Many environmental historians now explicitly connect their historical research to present-day environmental policy and advocacy. I started this video off with Peter Frankopan, a historian whose book The Earth Transformed contextualizes his research about the environment with advocacy for particular policies and moves. Whether this is wise and smart, I'll let you be the judge. For now, the field continues to grapple with how to balance natural and social science approaches, how to integrate human and non-human histories, and how to make environmental history relevant to broader public audiences without oversimplifying complex historical dynamics. Environmental history offers a unique lens for understanding the past by placing the human-nature relationship at the center of historical inquiry. By examining how humans have shaped their environments and have been shaped by them in turn, this field provides crucial context for contemporary environmental challenges. As we navigate the complex environmental problems of the 21st century, whether it is biodiversity loss, chemical warfare, disease, and natural disasters, environmental history reminds us that our current situation has deep historical roots. By understanding these, we gain not just knowledge about the past, but insights that can inform a better understanding of the natural world in the future. But back to you. What are your thoughts on environmental history? Have you studied it? Comment below. I'd love to know your ideas and start a discussion. Subscribe for frequent videos on history, literature, and culture. I also have a mailing list, blog, and creative writing classes, all linked below. Thank you for watching, and I will certainly see you soon. Goodbye for now.